There are moments in life that split everything into before and after. Not explosions, not screaming matches, not the kind of dramatic confrontations you see in movies. Sometimes the moment that changes everything is just a laugh. A single, careless, self-satisfied laugh from the person who was supposed to love you. That laugh is what ended my relationship with Cody Hale. And everything that happened after it was the most quietly powerful chapter of my life. My name is Rachel Dawson. I am 35 years old, and for most of my life I genuinely believed I was someone who paid attention, someone sharp enough to notice when things were off, perceptive enough to read the people closest to me. But I had a blind spot, and his name was Cody. We had been together for 4 years. To everyone looking in from the outside, we were a picture of stability. 2 professional careers, a house with my name on the deed, dinner parties, matching weekend routines, and the kind of easy social presence that made other couples feel comfortable around us. We were the pair that always got invited to weddings, but beneath all of that, beneath the matching travel mugs and the shared Netflix queues, I had started to feel the ground shifting under me. Not dramatically, just quietly. The way a foundation cracks before anyone notices the ceiling is sinking. Long before the wedding, long before any of this came to a head, there was Priya. Priya Langston was Cody's best friend. He had known her since college, and she had never once made me feel like anything more than a scheduling inconvenience in his life. She laughed too hard at everything he said, touched his arm a little too often, and looked at me the way someone looks at a piece of furniture they are politely tolerating in someone else's home. Cody always brushed off my concerns. She is like a sister to me. You are reading into things, and for a long time I believed him, or at least I wanted to. The truth is, when you love someone, you become very skilled at explaining away the things that make your stomach turn. The shift I could not ignore came about 8 months before the wedding. I had spent weeks planning a getaway for our anniversary. A mountain cabin, remote and warm and exactly the kind of place where we used to feel like ourselves again. I wanted us to reconnect, to breathe, to remember each other. When I showed Cody the details, he barely glanced at the photos before setting his phone face down and nodding vaguely. The next evening he walked through the front door smiling and announced that Priya had found a coastal resort she thought we would love, and that we should go there instead. No discussion, no interest in what I had built for us. Just a redirect, delivered with the casual confidence of someone who had already decided. We went to the resort. He spent 4 days texting her updates, sending her photos of the view, checking in with her like she was the one he was really there with. That was the first real crack, not a hairline fracture anymore. Something deeper, something I could not keep explaining away. When we came home from that trip, I made a decision that I told nobody. I called a lawyer. Just a single consultation, 90 minutes of steady, factual clarity that cut through everything I had been softening in my own mind. The most important thing she confirmed was that the house was mine. My name, my purchase, predating Cody by 2 years. She told me not to panic but to prepare. So I did exactly that. I opened private accounts and moved most of my income there, leaving just enough in our shared account to keep the surface looking calm. I started making careful lists. Quietly, methodically, I built an exit plan, not because I was certain I would need it, but because some part of me already knew Cody was going to give me a reason to use it. The wedding was held on a Saturday evening in late autumn. A college friend of Cody's was getting married, and the venue was the kind of ballroom that tried very hard to feel expensive. Crystal chandeliers, elaborate centerpieces, guests dressed like they were auditioning for something. Cody loved environments like that. He was someone who performed best when he had an audience. And Priya was there, of course, radiant and positioned at his side from the moment we arrived. I told myself I would not let it bother me. I told myself I would enjoy the evening. I told myself a lot of things that night that turned out not to matter at all. He danced with her from the moment the music started. Not once did he come find me on the dance floor. Not once did he bring me a drink or check whether I needed anything. I stood near the edge of the room watching them move together under the warm light, her head tipped back laughing, his hands settled on her waist with the kind of comfortable familiarity that belongs to people who have never had to hold anything back from each other. I was not jealous. I was not even angry. I was tired. The deep, bone-level exhaustion of someone who has been pretending not to see something for far too long. It happened at around 10 in the evening. I was near the bar having a polite and perfectly unmemorable conversation with one of the groom's relatives when I noticed a small cluster of people forming around Cody and Priya across the room. A woman in a dark green dress pointed at the braided silver bracelet on Cody's wrist, the couple's bracelet I had given him the previous Christmas. She smiled and asked if he and Priya were together. It was an innocent question. A simple, 3-second question that required nothing more than a smile and a gesture across the room toward me. But instead, Cody laughed. That particular laugh, the one that was always just a little too loud and a little too pleased with itself. He nudged Priya with his elbow and said with a smirk, "Basically single over here. It doesn't count when your girlfriend puts you to sleep just by existing." A few people laughed. A few looked uncertain. One woman caught my eye and looked away quickly. I did not move. I did not make a sound. The words were not shouted, but they traveled with the kind of quiet precision that certain cruelties always do. They land not in the air but directly in the chest, and they settle there. I felt something inside me go completely still, like a clock stopping mid-tick. There was no explosion of emotion, no wave of heartbreak, just a single clean and absolute certainty arriving all at once. This is finished. Not because of Priya, not because of months of comparison and dismissal and redirected loyalty, but because he enjoyed that. He chose that audience, chose that moment, and chose to humiliate me for a laugh. That was who he was. And I finally, fully believed it. From across the room, Cody glanced over at me. He saw me standing quietly, and apparently read nothing in my expression. I gave him a slow, small nod. He probably thought it was warmth. It was not. It was goodbye. A private farewell delivered in a ballroom full of strangers. I set down my glass, excused myself from the conversation, and walked out. No scene, no confrontation, no tears in the hallway. I simply left the room the way you close a book you will never open again. By the time the elevator doors closed behind me, I was already somewhere past grief and sitting squarely in resolve. I went to our hotel room, set my bag on the bed, and stood quietly for a moment. Then I moved with deliberate calm. I removed the silver bracelet from my wrist and placed it on the marble counter, with the kind of precision you use when you are putting something down for the last time. I packed my bag completely. Every item folded, every compartment zipped. I did not rush because I was not running, I was leaving. There is a difference. The drive home was 40 minutes of total silence. No music, no radio, just the rhythm of the road, and the strange, enormous peace of someone who has finally stopped waiting for something to happen and started deciding what happens next. I pulled into the driveway of my house, and let the engine go quiet. I went inside, turned on the kitchen light, and walked directly to the smart home panel on the wall. I found Cody's profile and deleted it without a single moment of hesitation. His access code was gone. His key fob became worthless. In less than 10 seconds, he became a stranger to my front door. Then I changed the garage code, reset the alarm pin, disconnected his phone from the network. Each step was quiet and efficient. By the time I was finished, I made myself a cup of tea and stood in the kitchen feeling lighter than I had in over a year. Then came the financial steps I had already rehearsed in my mind. I logged into our shared account, looked at months of casual spending I recognized too well, and transferred the balance to my private account. I left enough to avoid raising suspicion before morning. Then I pulled up the supplementary credit card he used regularly and reported it as lost. Access denied. Clean and immediate. After that, I went to the garage, pulled out the flat-packed moving boxes I had quietly purchased weeks earlier, and began. His closet first, then the bathroom, then the home office. 42 boxes in total, packed with calm precision, labeled neatly, stacked against the garage wall. I worked the way someone works when they have already emotionally completed a task, and the physical part is just a formality. At 3 in the morning, I opened my laptop and sent 2 words to my lawyer. File it. Then I went upstairs, got into bed, and slept more deeply than I had in months. His calls began at 7 the next morning. The first one was cheerful and unsuspecting. The second came when his card was declined at checkout, and his voice had shifted to confusion. The third arrived at just past 9, and his tone had collapsed entirely into panic. He was outside the front door, and his key was not working. I answered that one. He started rapid fire, demanding to know what was happening, asking me to let him in, his voice cycling between anger and bewilderment. I waited for him to finish, and then I told him calmly that I had heard him last night. Every word. He went quiet. Then he started to explain that it was a joke, that I was being oversensitive, that I was making something out of nothing. I told him I understood, and that 42 boxes of his belongings were in the garage, and a moving company would take them to a storage unit the following morning. I told him the accounts were closed, the card was frozen, and the legal documents would arrive shortly. His voice cracked for the first time. I hung up and blocked his number. Then I blocked Priya. Then I put on a record and made breakfast. Of course, he did not accept it quietly. Men who need an audience never do. By afternoon, a narrative had been constructed and distributed through mutual friends with impressive speed. According to Cody and Priya, I had suffered some kind of jealous breakdown at the wedding. I had been controlling for months. I had imagined the whole thing. I had thrown him out in a hysterical rage. It was a convincing performance, and I could tell it was landing because my phone began filling with messages from people checking on me with the slightly suspicious energy of people who had already heard a version of events. I did not respond to a single one. I had something they did not yet know about. At the wedding, I had noticed a teenager filming constantly throughout the night. She had a glittery phone case, and the focused energy of someone who treated every event like content. Her name on social media was Chloe, and finding her profile took about 4 minutes. I sent her a message explaining I was putting together a memory video for the newlyweds, and asking if she had footage from the reception. She sent me a full drive folder within 15 minutes. I scrolled through clip after clip until I found exactly what I needed. 30 seconds of dance floor footage in which the background captured, with perfect audio clarity, Cody leaning toward a laughing crowd and saying that he was basically single because his girlfriend put him to sleep just by existing. Priya's laugh followed immediately after. Sharp and unmistakable. I clipped 10 seconds, saved the file, and sat back in my chair. I did not post it publicly. I was not interested in spectacle. Instead, I sent a single group message to a carefully chosen list: the bride and groom, Cody's parents, Priya's boyfriend, a quiet man named Derek, who had always seemed uneasy around the two of them, and Cody's former girlfriend, a woman named Vanessa, who had once tried to warn me about his patterns before I was ready to hear it. The message was short. I told them I knew rumors were spreading, and I wanted the truth to be visible. I attached the clip. Then I put my phone on silent and went for a walk. The reaction was immediate and total. The bride sent a wall of horrified apologies. The groom said they were done with Cody entirely. Cody's mother sent a message that simply said she was horrified and that she had raised him to know better. But Derek was the real detonation. He called me first and asked in a very quiet voice whether the video was real and unedited. I told him it was pulled directly from someone else's camera at the reception. He whispered a thank you and hung up. 20 minutes later, he posted a public breakup statement tagging Priya, describing the pattern of dishonesty he had tolerated, and attaching the video. It spread through our social circle within the hour. Vanessa followed with a detailed account of Cody's behavior during their own relationship: the dismissiveness, the comparisons, the emotional sidelines he placed people on while centering himself. Her post circulated even further. By evening, neither Cody nor Priya had any ground left to stand on. The weeks that followed were a quiet unraveling for both of them. Cody's job required the kind of client-facing trust that evaporates the moment a video of you mocking your partner goes around a professional network. He was let go within a month. Priya's social world, which had been built almost entirely on performance and likability, collapsed the moment the performance was exposed. Friends distanced themselves one by one. Group chats she had been part of for years went suddenly and permanently quiet. The image she had spent years cultivating simply fell apart when people saw what was underneath it. Last I heard, they were not even speaking to each other. People bonded by performance never have anything real to hold on to once the audience disappears. My life moved in the opposite direction. The legal process was faster than I expected. Cody signed everything without a fight. My lawyer said it was one of the most uncomplicated cases he had handled in years. 3 months later, I sold the house. Not because it haunted me, but because I had outgrown it completely. I bought a condo downtown, bright and quiet with large windows overlooking the river. The first night I slept there, I did not think about Cody at all. I thought about how still the room was, how clean the air felt, how strange and wonderful it was to go to sleep without bracing for something. 6 months have passed since that ballroom, since the laugh that changed everything. I wake up early now and make breakfast while music plays softly in the background. I take long walks by the river in the evenings and come home to a space that feels entirely like mine because it is. Occasionally someone passes along an update that Cody has struggled to find steady work, that he reached out to Vanessa and was ignored, that someone heard him say losing me was the worst mistake he ever made. I feel nothing when I hear these things. Not satisfaction, not sadness. Just the steady quiet of someone who has moved far enough forward that the past has stopped having a temperature. There is something Mason never understood about me. Something I think people like him rarely understand about the people they underestimate. He called me boring. He said our relationship did not count. He performed that dismissal in front of an audience and laughed about it. But what he mistook for dullness was actually patience. What he confused for passivity was preparation. And what he laughed at was the last door closing between us. He thought he was joking. I was listening. And when the moment came, I did not shout. I did not break. I did not beg. I simply walked out, closed the door softly behind me, and built something better in the silence that followed. Some people spend their whole lives mistaking loudness for power. I learned that real power is the ability to walk away from something that no longer deserves you, quietly, completely, and without looking back.